Have you ever wondered what your life would look like if you stopped giving so much of your energy to other people's opinions and started giving it all to yourself? Think about it for a moment. Every single day, so many of your choices, your thoughts, and even your dreams are shaped by what someone else might say, what someone else might think, or how someone else might react. And yet, deep inside, you know there's a version of you that wants to break free, a version that wants to grow, succeed, and rise without waiting for anyone's approval. That version of you is powerful. That version of you is unstoppable. But you cannot reach it until you decide that your focus belongs to you, not to them. Right now, you might feel pulled in every direction. Maybe people around you expect too much. Maybe you've been trying to prove yourself for too long. Or maybe you're carrying the weight of their doubts, their judgments, and their criticisms. It's exhausting, isn't it? But here's the truth. The moment you redirect your focus inward, the moment you put all that wasted energy into yourself, everything begins to shift. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining your dreams. And instead, you start building them quietly, relentlessly, without distraction. This is not about becoming selfish. This is about becoming free. Because the people who shock the world are not the ones who spend their lives begging to be understood. They are the ones who dared to focus on themselves until their growth became undeniable. They turned their silence into strength, their discipline into results, and their pain into fuel. That can be you. You don't need anyone to hand you permission. You don't need anyone to say you're ready. You just need to make the choice to focus on yourself like your future depends on it, because it does. Imagine how different your life would feel if every ounce of energy you wasted worrying about others was redirected into your own progress. The hours you spend doubting yourself could be hours of practice. The time you spend scrolling, comparing, and complaining could be time invested in your health, your skills, your craft, your vision. The second you take back control of your focus, you stop being at the mercy of the world. You stop playing small, and slowly, you begin to rise. And here's the best part. When you focus on yourself, you won't even need to chase recognition. The results will speak for you. The strength you build will speak for you. The transformation will shock everyone who doubted you, everyone who underestimated you, everyone who thought you would stay the same. That's the reward waiting for you, not their approval, but their silence when they realize they can't deny your growth. Stay with me, because as we go deeper, you'll discover how powerful you really are when your attention is no longer scattered. You'll see why focusing on yourself isn't just about success. It's about freedom, peace, and purpose. And by the time we're done, you'll know exactly how to start taking back that focus step by step until your life is no longer controlled by others, but created by you. This is your moment. This is your time. All you have to do is listen, decide, and begin. The truth is, most people never reach their true potential because they are too busy watching others live theirs. They scroll through endless feeds, comparing lives, comparing looks, comparing success, and in that comparison, they lose themselves. They forget that focus is like a beam of light. Wherever you point it, that thing grows stronger. Point it at distractions, and distractions grow. Point it at negativity, and negativity grows. But point it at yourself, at your growth, your health, your craft, your purpose, and suddenly you become unstoppable. When you give yourself permission to fully focus on you, you create a shift inside your mind. You move from victim to creator. Instead of waiting for life to give you opportunities, you start building them. Instead of waiting for others to notice your worth, you prove it to yourself. That shift changes everything, because the world cannot ignore a person who is relentless about their own progress. They may doubt you in the beginning. They may laugh at your ambition, but the day you commit to focusing inward, they lose their power over you. Their words become noise. Their judgment becomes irrelevant. Think about this. The most powerful investment you will ever make is not in money, not in possessions, not even in relationships. It is in yourself. Your body, your mind, your skills, your discipline. These are things no one can take away from you. When you pour your energy into building them, you are building an empire inside yourself, an empire of strength, clarity, and self-respect. And once that foundation is strong, everything else in life begins to align. You attract better opportunities, better people, better outcomes, because the energy you carry speaks louder than any words you could ever say. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable. Yes, it will feel lonely at times. When you shift your focus inward, not everyone will understand. Some will say you've changed. Some will call you distant. Some may even try to guilt you back into being the version of yourself they were comfortable with. But you must remember this: growth demands discomfort. Transformation demands solitude. You cannot build a new life while clinging to the old one. And if you stay true, if you stay focused, the very people once doubted you will one day be forced to respect you. Not because you begged for it, but because you became undeniable. The human brain is wired to seek approval, but it is also wired to adapt. At first, choosing yourself feels unnatural. You might feel guilty for saying no. You might feel selfish for setting boundaries. But the more you practice focusing on yourself, the stronger you become. Your mind adapts. Your confidence grows. Soon, what once felt uncomfortable will feel empowering. What once felt selfish will feel necessary. That is a transformation waiting for you to step into a life where you no longer apologize for focusing on what matters most. You. And here's the reward that makes it all worth it. When you commit to your own growth, you don't just change your life, you inspire others to change theirs. Your focus creates a ripple effect. People watch you rise, and even if they never admit it, they begin to wonder what would happen if they stopped wasting energy on others and started investing in themselves too. You become proof that transformation is possible. You become the reminder they cannot ignore. And all of it begins the moment you decide to take your focus back from the world and put it exactly where it belongs. Most people underestimate how much energy they waste trying to be understood by those who are not even trying to understand themselves. They explain their goals to people who have none. They share their dreams with people who stopped dreaming years ago. They pour their passion into conversations that only end in doubt, criticism, or silence. That endless cycle drains the spirit, leaving you tired before you even begin. But the moment you stop explaining and start building, something powerful happens. You reclaim your energy. You stop leaking it into places that give nothing back, and you channel it into the one place guaranteed to multiply it: you. The human mind is like a garden. Whatever you feed grows. When you focus on others, their doubts take root in you, their negativity grows inside you, their fears become your fears. But when you focus on yourself, when you protect your mental soil, you begin to grow something unstoppable. Confidence takes root, discipline grows stronger, self-respect blooms, and before long, the garden inside you is so alive, so vibrant, that no outside negativity can compete with it. You become too focused, too grounded, too unshakable to be swayed by opinions that once held you hostage. This is why focus is power. Not physical power, but the kind of power that shapes destiny. When you put all of your attention on yourself, you start to notice things you once ignored. You see the habits holding you back. You notice the excuses you've been hiding behind. You catch yourself when you're wasting time. And with that awareness comes choice. The choice to rise higher, to step into the version of yourself that's been waiting for you all along. Most people never experience this shift because they're too distracted. But when you choose focus, you unlock a clarity that makes you unstoppable. Yes, it feels difficult to break free from the noise of others, but difficulty is the point. Difficulty is the proof that you are breaking patterns, shedding old skins, rewriting who you are. The very resistance you feel is evidence that growth is happening. And if you can endure it, if you can push through the discomfort, you will come out the other side sharper, stronger, and far more powerful than the person who began. That is the transformation, born only from self-focus, the birth of someone who refuses to be controlled by outside noise. And here's the beautiful irony. The more you focus on yourself, the less you need to prove anything to anyone. Your progress becomes your proof. Your discipline becomes your answer. Your results silence every critic, every doubter, every voice that once told you you can't. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. You simply live, you simply grow, you simply rise. And that alone shocks everyone who once thought you would stay the same. So imagine the life you could build if you stopped wasting a single ounce of energy on their opinions and devoted all of it to your vision. Imagine the strength you could unlock if you gave yourself the same effort you've been giving to people who don't even notice. That is the power waiting for you right now. A life where your focus is no longer divided. A life where your energy is no longer scattered. A life where everything you are building is aligned with who you truly want to become. This is the life that begins the moment you decide to give yourself the gift of undivided focus. Every time you choose yourself, you are sending a signal to your mind that you are worth the effort. You are programming your brain to believe in your own value. The human mind responds to repetition. If you repeatedly place others above yourself, your brain learns that you are second. But if you repeatedly choose your own growth, your brain begins to wire itself for confidence, for strength, for victory. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. You are teaching your subconscious that you matter, that your dreams matter, that your life matters. And once that belief is rooted deep within you, no amount of criticism or rejection can shake it. This is why self-focus is not optional. It is essential, because without it, you are a shadow of yourself, constantly shaped by the expectations of the world. But with it, you become the sculptor of your destiny. You begin to carve out discipline where there was once laziness. You shape courage where there was once fear. You build clarity where there was once confusion. And every day that you choose to focus on you, the sculpture becomes sharper, stronger, more defined. Until one day you stand before the world as undeniable proof of what relentless self-focus can create. It takes courage to say yes to yourself in a world that benefits from your distraction. Distraction is profitable. Your attention is the most valuable currency you own, and everyone is fighting to take it. Social media, entertainment, gossip, opinions, they all compete for your focus. And if you give it away carelessly, you will wake up one day realizing you built nothing for yourself. But when you protect your focus, when you guard it like your future depends on it, you separate yourself from the masses. You stop being a consumer of other people's lives and start being the creator of your own. That is how you shock the world, not by talking about what you want, but by building it in silence while everyone else is distracted. The challenge is not whether you can succeed. The challenge is whether you can stay focused long enough to let success appear. Focus requires patience. It requires saying no to temporary pleasures for the sake of permanent results. It requires silence when everyone else is loud. But here's the reward. When you master your focus, you master your life. You rise above the noise. You stop being pulled by every opinion, every trend, every distraction. You create a path so clear that nothing can pull you off it. And the people who once doubted you will have no choice but to notice the results they cannot deny. Imagine how liberating it feels to walk into a room no longer needing anyone's validation. Imagine building so much strength in private that your presence alone commands respect without a single word. That kind of power doesn't come from luck or chance or other people's approval. It comes from focus, laser, sharp, relentless focus on yourself. And once you build it, it becomes unshakable. So every choice you make today is a chance to take your focus back. Every distraction you resist is a brick laid in the foundation of your future. Every moment you choose growth over comfort is proof that you are serious about your transformation. And the more you repeat these choices, the more undeniable you become. This is how you rise, not by waiting, not by begging, but by focusing on yourself until the world has no choice but to be shocked by who you become. The greatest turning point in your life will come the moment you stop waiting for others to recognize your worth and start living as though your worth is unquestionable. When you anchor your focus within yourself, you stop negotiating with doubt. You stop needing permission. You stop delaying your progress until someone else claps for you. That is the freedom most people never taste. The freedom of no longer being dependent on approval. And when you live from that place, your energy changes. Your actions carry conviction. Your presence commands respect without you ever having to demand it. Every human being has an untapped reservoir of potential. But potential alone is not enough. It remains locked until it is fueled by focus. Think about the way a magnifying glass can turn the rays of the sun into a flame. The light was always there, but until it was concentrated, it could not ignite. That is you. You are not lacking power. You are not lacking talent. You are not lacking possibility. You are lacking concentrated focus. And the moment you direct it fully at yourself, the fire begins. The spark turns into flame. The flame becomes a force that cannot be ignored. But be prepared. When you begin to change, resistance will come, not just from the world, but from within. Your old habits will fight to stay alive. Your old identity will try to pull you back. Fear will whisper that it is safer to stay the same. But understand this, fear is not a wall, fear is a test. It asks one question, are you serious about becoming who you say you want to be? And every time you choose to focus on yourself despite the fear, you answer yes. That repeated yes is how you rewire your identity. That repeated yes is how you step into your strength. It won't always feel glamorous. Self-focus is not about chasing constant motivation. It's about building unshakable discipline. Discipline is the bridge between who you are now and who you want to be. It's the proof that you care enough about yourself to do the work even when it isn't easy. And when discipline becomes your habit, results become inevitable. You no longer wonder if you'll make progress. You know it's only a matter of time. That certainty alone will set you apart from the majority of people who quit as soon as things get uncomfortable. And here's the part that shocks everyone. The more you elevate yourself, the more undeniable you become. People who once dismissed you will be forced to take notice. People who once underestimated you will have no choice but to reevaluate, not because you demanded their attention, but because you earned it through transformation. Nothing speaks louder than visible change. Nothing silences doubt like undeniable results. That is why focusing on yourself is the most powerful revenge, the most powerful statement, the most powerful act of courage you could ever take. So ask yourself now, are you willing to stop scattering your energy on things that do not serve you? Are you willing to gather it, sharpen it, and direct it fully at your own growth? Because the moment you decide, the moment you commit, you begin to unlock a life that is bigger, stronger, freer than anything you've experienced before. And that life is waiting. It has always been waiting. The only thing missing is your decision to focus on yourself with the intensity that makes the world stop and watch in awe. When you finally decide to place your focus entirely on yourself, you begin to experience a shift that others cannot understand until they see the results. The noise of the world grows quieter. The opinions that once shook you lose their weight. The need to explain, defend, or justify disappears. You no longer ask, will they approve of me? Instead, you ask, am I proud of myself today? That question changes everything because it puts the power back in your hands. It makes your growth your responsibility, your transformation your mission, and your success your proof. Most people never reach that point because they are too attached to being liked. They fear that focusing on themselves means losing people. But here's the reality. When you elevate, some people will fall away, not because you push them, but because they cannot rise with you. And that is not a loss. It is a clearing. Life will remove the weight that cannot travel with you into your next level. You are not here to carry everyone's expectations. You are here to fulfill your potential. The people meant for you will respect your focus. The people threatened by it were never meant to stay. This is why your focus must be guarded like treasure. Every distraction, every toxic voice, every negative influence is a thief trying to steal your future. And each time you allow them in, they take a piece of your energy. But when you turn your gaze inward, when you commit to becoming the strongest version of yourself, those thieves lose their power. They can no longer pull you off course because you are too anchored in who you are becoming. That inner strength is unshakable, and once you build it, no one can take it away. The world may not cheer for your discipline. They may not applaud your late nights, your early mornings, your sacrifices, but they will not be able to ignore what comes out of it. Progress has a voice. Success has a presence. Transformation has a way of making itself undeniable. And when you stay focused long enough, those who once doubted will watch in silence as you become everything they said you couldn't. That silence will be louder than any applause you could have begged for. The psychology behind this is simple. Human beings are wired to notice change. We are drawn to what is different, what is rare, what stands out. When you stay the same, no one pays attention. But when you transform yourself, when you become disciplined, confident, and unrecognizable from who you once were, people cannot help but notice. You shock them not by demanding their attention, but by evolving into someone they never imagined you could be. That is the reward of relentless self-focus. So let this truth settle in. You are not behind, you are not lacking, you are not broken. You are simply unfocused. The power you are chasing has always been inside you, scattered and divided. The moment you bring it back to yourself, the moment you decide to direct it into growth, your entire life begins to change. This is your time to build in silence, to rise with discipline, to focus so intensely on yourself that when the results finally reveal themselves, the world has no choice but to be shocked by the person you have become. There comes a moment when you realize that the only approval you ever needed was your own. That realization frees you in ways nothing else can. It releases you from the chains of comparison, from the endless search for validation, from the exhausting cycle of trying to be everything for everyone. When you break those chains, you reclaim your energy, and that energy is the fuel that will carry you into the life you deserve. Focus is not just about productivity. It is about liberation. It is about choosing to live on your own terms instead of being trapped in the shadows of other people's expectations. The human brain thrives on clarity. When your focus is scattered, your mind is anxious, restless, and unfocused. But when you give yourself a single direction, when you decide that your energy belongs to your growth, your entire nervous system shifts. Clarity creates peace. Peace creates power. And from that power, progress becomes inevitable. Most people live in chaos because they never choose. They want everything, they listen to everyone, and they end up with nothing. But when you make the choice to focus on yourself, you narrow the path, and the path becomes clear. That clarity alone puts you ahead of almost everyone else. It will not always feel easy. Growth never does. There will be days when the world tries to pull you back into distraction, when old patterns try to reclaim you, when people around you question your commitment. But each time you choose to stay the course, you build resilience. Each time you resist the temptation to return to comfort, you strengthen your character. Every act of focus becomes a layer of armor, and before long, you are no longer fragile. You are no longer breakable. You become someone who cannot be swayed by the noise of others because you are too committed to the voice within. And that voice inside you is powerful. It knows when you are wasting time. It knows when you are selling yourself short. It knows when you are meant for more. That inner voice has been whispering to you for years, urging you to rise, but it can only become louder when you silence the world around you. Focus is how you hear yourself again. Focus is how you align with your true purpose. And once you reconnect with that purpose, your life takes on a force greater than fear, greater than doubt, greater than anything trying to hold you back. Understand this: when you transform yourself, you do not just shock the world, you inspire it. People are watching, even when they pretend not to. They notice the changes, they feel the shift, they see the discipline. And while some may envy it, many will be moved by it. Your decision to focus on yourself becomes a mirror that reflects back to others what is possible for them too. Without even trying, you become a leader. Without seeking attention, you become a source of light. So hold on to this truth. With everything you have, the more you focus on yourself, the freer you become. The freer you become, the stronger you grow. And the stronger you grow, the more undeniable your life becomes. This is not about impressing anyone. This is about becoming everything you were meant to be. And when that happens, the shock will not be temporary. It will echo in every direction, proving that a single decision to focus on yourself was enough to change everything. The moment you decide to place all of your energy on yourself, you begin to see how much of your life has been shaped by distraction. You start to recognize the endless hours wasted on comparison, on overthinking, on replaying conversations that no longer matter. You notice how often you paused your own progress just to give space to the voices of others. That awareness can be painful, but it is also empowering, because once you see it, you can no longer ignore it. You reclaim your time. You reclaim your power. And in doing so, you step into a level of control that most people never experience. Every ounce of energy you waste on others is energy stolen from your own growth. This is why so many people feel stuck. It isn't because they lack ability. It's because their attention is scattered in 100 directions that lead nowhere. But when you gather that energy, when you take it back from the noise and direct it fully into yourself, progress accelerates. It's like harnessing a river that once flooded everywhere and channeling it into a single powerful current. That current becomes unstoppable, and so do you. Your focus becomes your filter. Suddenly, not every opinion matters. Not every distraction deserves your time. Not every invitation earns your presence. You learn to say no with confidence because you are saying yes to something greater. That discipline transforms you. It builds integrity with yourself. Each time you choose you, you prove to your own mind that your future is worth protecting. And when your mind learns that truth, it will fight with you instead of against you. It will remind you why you started. It will push you forward when the world tries to pull you back. But do not mistake this focus for selfishness. It is not about shutting people out. It is about rising so that you can become stronger for yourself and for those who truly matter. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot inspire anyone if you are drained and broken. Focusing on yourself fills your cup, sharpens your edge, strengthens your foundation. From that place of strength, you have more to give, not less, and what you give carries weight because it comes from a person who lives what they speak. This path will test you. It will test your patience, your discipline, your commitment. It will tempt you with comfort, with old patterns, with familiar distractions. But each time you resist, you grow sharper. Each time you choose focus over comfort, you prove that your future matters more than temporary pleasure. And slowly, you are no longer the same. You become someone defined not by what they avoided, but by what they built. That shift is permanent. That shift is powerful. And here lies the ultimate shock to the world. You no longer need to convince anyone of your worth because your results do it for you. Your silence becomes louder than that noise. Your progress becomes undeniable. Your transformation becomes the answer to every question, every doubt, every criticism that was ever thrown your way. You rise not because they believed in you, but because you believed in yourself. That is the kind of strength that cannot be faked, cannot be argued, cannot be ignored. It is the strength of someone who chose to focus, who chose to rise, and who chose to shock the world simply by becoming the version of themselves they were always meant to be. The greatest proof of transformation is not found in the words you speak, but in the life you build when no one is watching. Real growth is silent. It happens in the hours when no one is clapping, no one is validating, no one is checking in. It happens when you are left alone with your choices, your discipline, your habits. That is where true power is forged. And when you focus on yourself long enough, the results of those hidden moments become impossible to hide. They will show in your strength, in your confidence, in the way you carry yourself without needing a single word of explanation. This is why focus is so rare, because it requires sacrifice. It requires you to let go of instant gratification, to silence the noise, to resist the constant pull of distraction. Most people cannot do this. They choose comfort over growth, distraction over discipline, validation over purpose. But that is why they stay the same. That is why their lives never shock anyone, not even themselves. If you want to rise above, if you want to be unforgettable, you must be willing to give up what is common in order to build what is rare. And nothing is rarer than someone who is truly focused. The psychology of transformation is simple, but relentless. What you focus on expands. If you focus on problems, they grow bigger. If you focus on excuses, they multiply. But if you focus on growth, on discipline, on progress, even in the smallest ways, those choices compound until they create a version of you that cannot be ignored. It doesn't happen in a day. It doesn't happen in a week. But it will happen if you refuse to break your focus. Consistency is the engine, focus is the fuel, and transformation is the inevitable result. There will be people who won't understand. They may call you obsessed. They may say you've changed. They may even try to shame you for prioritizing yourself. But understand this, their words are reflections of their own limits, not yours. People fear what they don't have the courage to do themselves. Your focus confronts their complacency. Your discipline reminds them of their excuses. And instead of applauding, they project their discomfort. But you must not bend to it. You must stand firm, because the very resistance you face is proof that you are moving in the right direction. And then comes the shift that shocks everyone. They notice the weight you've shed, not just from your body, but from your spirit. They notice the strength in your presence, not just in your posture, but in your energy. They notice the success you built, not because you boasted, but because it became undeniable. That transformation silences every critic. That progress answers every question. In that moment, you realize the sweetest victory was never proving them wrong. It was proving yourself right. This is what focus gives you. The ability to look in the mirror and know you kept your promise to yourself, to know you resisted distractions, ignored the noise, and poured everything into your growth. That feeling cannot be faked. It cannot be handed to you. It can only be earned through focus, discipline, and relentless self-belief. And when you earn it, you carry a strength that no one can take away. You become living proof that by choosing yourself, by focusing inward, you can create a life that shocks everyone. not with noise, but with undeniable results. The real test of your focus is not when everything feels exciting, but when the excitement fades and all that remains is the work. Anyone can be motivated for a week. Anyone can feel inspired for a short burst of time, but few can keep going when the initial fire dims, when the routine feels heavy, when progress seems slow. That is where champions are made, in the quiet consistency that no one celebrates. Because every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are building proof inside yourself that you are unstoppable. And that proof is what carries you forward long after motivation fades. Your brain is wired to crave novelty. It loves what feels easy, what feels fun, what gives instant reward. That is why it's so quick to chase distractions. But the same brain that craves comfort can be rewired through repetition. Each time you ignore a distraction, each time you complete the task you promised yourself, each time you show up despite resistance, you are training your mind. You are teaching it that focus is not a burden, but a habit. And once it becomes habit, it no longer feels like a fight. It feels like who you are. That identity shift is everything. When you no longer see yourself as someone who tries, but as someone who is, your confidence changes. You stop wondering if you can because you've proven to yourself that you already do. That confidence is unshakable because it is built on evidence. No one gave it to you. You created it through focus, through discipline, through the small choices that built a foundation of strength. And the stronger that foundation becomes, the higher you can rise without fear of collapse. But rising requires sacrifice. There is no way around it. You will sacrifice comfort. You will sacrifice approval. You will sacrifice the shallow satisfaction of fitting in. Yet what you gain is so much greater. Freedom, strength, clarity, respect. Respect not only from others, but from yourself. And self-respect is the key to everything, because when you respect yourself, you no longer tolerate mediocrity. You no longer settle for less than you are capable of. You no longer accept distractions as harmless. They become unacceptable. That inner standard raises everything about your life. Others may not understand why you've changed, but they will not be able to deny the outcome. They will see it in your body, in your work, in your energy, in the results that surround you. And at first, they may be shocked. Shocked at the transformation, shocked at the discipline, shocked that you did what they thought you never could. But eventually, shock will turn into respect, and respect will turn into silence, because your growth speaks louder than anything they could ever say. This is the essence of focusing on yourself. You stop chasing external validation and start creating undeniable proof. You stop asking the world to believe in you and start becoming someone who doesn't need their belief. That shift is powerful because it puts everything in your control. You are no longer waiting for the right time, the right people, the right circumstances. You are building regardless. And in that building, you are proving that nothing is more powerful than a person who chooses themselves fully and refuses to break their focus until the world has no choice but to see what they've become. There's a point where focus becomes more than action. It becomes your identity. You no longer wake up debating whether to commit, because commitment is who you are. You no longer negotiate with excuses because excuses no longer fit into your definition of yourself. This is the stage where transformation accelerates because your choices are no longer dependent on feelings. They are rooted in who you have decided to become. And once identity takes over, change is no longer temporary, it is permanent. Most people never reach this stage because they stop too soon. They let discomfort convince them it isn't worth it. They let fear whisper that they are not ready. They let the opinions of others drag them back into old habits. But the few who push through, the few who stay locked in on themselves despite the resistance, are the ones who rise above the rest. They understand that every moment of resistance is not a signal to quit, but a signal that growth is near. And they use that resistance as proof that transformation is happening. Your focus is the weapon that cuts through fear, through doubt, through hesitation. Each time you refuse to break it, you sharpen it. Each time you choose to keep building when it would be easier to stop, you strengthen it. And over time, that weapon becomes unbreakable. It carves out a future that distractions could never build. A future where you are no longer controlled by weakness, but defined by strength. That is the future waiting for you the moment you decide you will not break your focus for anything less than your destiny. Understand this: focus is not about perfection. You will stumble. You will fall. You will have days where you feel like you've lost ground. But true focus is not about never falling. It is about refusing to stay down. It is about choosing every single time to rise again, to refocus, to recommit. That resilience is what separates those who talk about transformation from those who live it. And every time you rise, every time you recommit, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than the obstacle that tried to stop you. And as you rise, people begin to see a difference. They notice the consistency. They notice the discipline. They notice the results stacking one on top of the other. At first, they are surprised. Then they are impressed. And eventually they are silenced because the proof is too strong to argue with. That silence is powerful. It is the sound of victory. It is the sound of someone who no longer needs to explain because the evidence speaks louder than any words ever could. This is why focusing on yourself is the ultimate act of strength. It is not just about building success. It is about reclaiming your mind, your body, your energy, and your life. It is about standing in front of the mirror and seeing someone you respect, someone you trust, someone you believe in. And when you reach that point, when your identity is built on focus, there is nothing left to prove. You become undeniable. You become unshakable. And in that moment, the world is forced to face a truth it never expected, that you became everything they thought you couldn't, simply because you decided to focus on yourself and never let go. The deeper your focus grows, the more you begin to see how much of life you once gave away to things that never mattered. You remember the hours spent scrolling, the conversations that drained you, the doubts you fed until they felt like truth. And in that realization comes a powerful shift. You no longer feel guilt for walking away from what doesn't serve you. Instead, you feel pride. Because every time you protect your focus, you are protecting your future. You are no longer scattering your energy in 100 directions. You are channeling it like a laser into the life you are determined to build. That clarity is rare. Most people live in a fog, pulled one way by distractions and another by fears, never standing firmly in their own direction. They wonder why their lives feel stuck, why progress feels slow, why they never break through. But the truth is, breakthroughs are not a matter of luck. They are a matter of focus. The person who chooses one path and stays consistent will always outpace the one who changes direction with every mood, every opinion, every obstacle. Your focus is the great multiplier. It takes small, steady effort and turns it into massive transformation over time. And what you begin to notice as you sharpen that focus is that the opinions that once controlled you start to lose their power. The same voices that once made you doubt yourself now sound faint, distant, irrelevant. Because when you are moving with certainty, noise no longer feels heavy. It feels meaningless. You realize that people who criticize are only revealing their own limitations. They project their fears, their excuses, their insecurities, hoping to slow you down so they don't have to face their own lack of progress. But your focus makes you immune. You stop absorbing their doubts and instead you use their disbelief as fuel to go even harder. This is the quiet revolution happening inside you. The shift from being pulled by the world to being led by your own vision. That shift is where true confidence is born. Not the shallow confidence of pretending, but the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you are keeping your promises to yourself. You said you would rise earlier and you did. You said you would stay consistent and you did. You said you would not stop until you built the life you envisioned, and every day you are proving that those were not empty words. That kind of trust in yourself cannot be bought, borrowed, or faked. It must be earned, and you are earning it with every focused choice. Eventually, people start asking how you did it. They look at you and see discipline they couldn't imagine, results they thought were impossible, energy they can't ignore. And the irony is that the answer is simple. You didn't chase them. You didn't waste your time trying to convince them. You didn't look for shortcuts or secrets. You simply focused on yourself day after day until the accumulation of small wins created something undeniable. That is the power they underestimated. That is the power they will never forget. And as this power grows, you begin to understand the real gift of focus. It is not only about shocking others, but about liberating yourself. Because when you master your focus, you master your life. You are no longer a prisoner to distractions, doubts, or outside noise. You are free, free to rise, free to grow, free to become everything you always knew you could be. And that freedom is worth every sacrifice, every struggle, every moment of discipline, because it gives you the one thing most people never experience: complete control over your destiny. The moment you realize you hold complete control over your destiny, something inside you changes forever. You stop waiting for opportunities to arrive and you start creating them. You stop hoping that circumstances will shift in your favor, and you decide to become the force that shifts everything. That decision is the birth of power, because when you no longer depend on chance, you become unstoppable. You are no longer waiting for permission to step into greatness. You are claiming it with your actions. This is the essence of shock. People are used to waiting, to delaying, to making excuses. They live their lives on pause, telling themselves that someday will arrive when conditions are perfect. But someday never comes for them because they never realize that the conditions are never supposed to be perfect. They are supposed to be created. And when you begin to create your own path instead of waiting for one to open, that is when people look at you with disbelief. They cannot comprehend how you moved while they stood still, how you built momentum while they wasted years hesitating. But you will know the truth. You will know it was focus that carried you forward when others stopped. It was the decision to ignore distractions, to silence doubts, to outwork and outlast every obstacle. And that truth will give you a quiet, unshakable confidence. You won't need to shout about your progress. You won't need to explain your discipline. The proof will be visible in your energy, in your results, in the way you carry yourself. And that kind of proof is louder than any words could ever be. Yet with this power comes a test. The more you rise, the more people will try to pull you back. Some will disguise their doubts as concern. Some will try to belittle your progress because it reminds them of their own lack of action. Others will simply refuse to believe what they see because accepting your success forces them to confront their excuses. You must be ready for this. You must understand that focus is not just about doing the work. It is about protecting your vision from those who cannot see it. And the stronger you protect it, the greater your transformation becomes. Every time you choose your vision over their voices, you grow stronger. Every time you choose consistency over comfort, you grow tougher. Every time you choose to keep moving when it would be easier to stop, you grow closer to becoming unstoppable. And when people finally see the results, they will be stunned. They will wonder how you did it when the truth is simple. You chose yourself when they chose distractions. You kept your eyes on the goal while they kept theirs on each other. And in that difference lies the reason you rise while they remain the same. This is why focus is more than a strategy. It is survival, because the world will always try to pull you away from yourself, to drown you in noise, to bury you under doubt. But when you master focus, you cut through it all. You rise above the fog, you step into clarity. And in that clarity, you become unstoppable. You become undeniable, and you shock everyone, not because you set out to prove them wrong, but because you set out to prove yourself right, and you did. The shock you create is not in the moment you rise, but in the consistency that sustains your rise. Anyone can appear disciplined for a week. Anyone can post about change for a month. But real transformation is proven in silence, in the months and years of unbroken focus when no one is watching. That is where the shock comes from. Not sudden, but undeniable. Not loud, but powerful. You do not surprise them with a single act. You overwhelm them with a life built through discipline, with evidence so strong it cannot be ignored. And while the world watches in disbelief, something greater is happening inside you. You begin to notice how much lighter you feel without the weight of comparison. You stop chasing approval and start chasing progress. You stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself against who you were yesterday. That shift is freedom, because the moment you stop needing to compete with anyone but yourself, your energy multiplies, your focus sharpens, your growth accelerates. You are no longer dragged down by their pace because you found your own. That is why focusing on yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. You cannot give your best to the world if you are constantly drained by it. You cannot pour into others if your own cup is empty. When you focus on your own growth, your own discipline, your own vision, you expand what you are capable of giving. You rise first so that your presence becomes proof that rising is possible. You become the example others never had, the evidence that transformation is real, and that evidence carries more weight than any advice ever could. Still, you must be prepared for the loneliness that comes with this path. Growth often separates you from people who are comfortable staying the same. And at first, that separation feels heavy, but over time, you begin to see it as necessary space. Because the higher you rise, the clearer you see. And from that clarity, you realize that not everyone is meant to walk with you. Some were only there for the version of you that played small. Some were only comfortable when your focus was scattered, when your dreams were silent. When you grow beyond that, they fade. And that is exactly how it should be. In their absence, you discover something even more powerful, the ability to walk alone and still remain strong. That strength is rare. Most people cannot stand the silence of their own company, so they fill it with noise. But when you can walk alone, focused and unshaken, you become unbreakable. Because if you can keep going without applause, without company, without validation, then nothing can stop you when those things eventually appear. Your focus is already trained to thrive without them. Everything else becomes a bonus, not a requirement. And this is where transformation becomes permanent. When you no longer rely on anything external to stay disciplined, when your drive is entirely internal, you have already won. No setback can end you. No opinion can sway you. No distraction can defeat you. You are locked into yourself, and that lock cannot be broken. The world will see the results and call it shocking, but you will know it was inevitable because focus never lies. It always delivers. It always pays back more than it costs. And when you have mastered it, you hold the one thing that separates the unstoppable from everyone else. The truth is that most people will never know what it feels like to be unstoppable because they spend their entire lives negotiating with their own excuses. They say they want change, but the moment it demands sacrifice, they retreat. They talk about discipline, but the moment temptation appears, they give in. They dream of freedom, but they choose the chains of distraction over the discomfort of growth. That is why those who master focus stand out so powerfully, not because they are more talented, not because they were given more opportunities, but because they refused to break when it was easier to bend. Every choice you make is a declaration of who you are becoming. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are declaring that your future matters more than your comfort. Every time you choose growth over excuses, you are declaring that your potential matters more than your fears. And every time you choose to rise instead of staying down, you are declaring that nothing outside of you has the power to define your destiny. These declarations build momentum, and momentum builds transformation. The mind is wired to protect you from discomfort. It will whisper that you've done enough. It will remind you of how tired you feel, how tempting it would be to take a break, how safe it would be to stay the same. But those whispers are not truth. They are survival instincts misfiring. They are the echoes of a brain designed to keep you alive, not to help you thrive. And when you understand that, you stop treating them as commands and start treating them as background noise. You feel the pull of distraction and you move anyway. You hear the call of comfort and you rise anyway. That is what it means to take control of your mind. And when you control your mind, you control your life. Because the body follows where the mind leads. Your actions follow your focus. Your results follow your actions. This is the chain that builds transformation. And every time you reinforce it, you are making it stronger, unbreakable, undeniable. Until one day you look back and realize that what once felt impossible is now your new normal. What once felt like a struggle is now your natural rhythm. And what once felt like sacrifice is now simply who you are. That shift is where the shock multiplies. People don't just notice your results. They notice the ease with which you now achieve them. They cannot understand how you maintain such discipline because they never see the years it took to build. They never see the battles fought in silence, the temptations resisted, the nights you kept working when no one believed in you. They only see the outcome. And because they never saw the process, they call it talent, luck, or genetics. But you will know the truth. It was focus. It was consistency. It was the decision made over and over to stay locked into your vision no matter the cost. This is why you must never underestimate the power of small choices. Each one is a vote for the person you are becoming. Each one is proof that your destiny is being built in real time. And when you string those choices together, day after day, year after year, the outcome is inevitable. You will rise, you will transform, and you will shock everyone. Not because you set out to impress them, but because you set out to master yourself and you refused to break until you did.